Hey friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are going to take a winter garden tour of the privacy berm behind me. If you have been a faithful watcher of Gardening with Creekside, really for like the last year, you have seen this space develop and grow and just absolutely thrive. If you are new to Gardening with Creekside, I want to give you a little bit of a history, tell you why we created this space and the whole little bit of a back history on it and why we did what we did and how we did it. It is a privacy berm. It is raised. It's a little bit hard to tell with the elevation, but what we wanted to do was to create a beautiful natural kind of a privacy screen between our house, which you see on the left, and then the retail garden center, which is over here on the right. So what we did is created this bed. This whole entire space before was just one big field. So it went all the way from the road that goes to the nursery all the way up to the flower bed that has the crepe myrtles and the daylilies closer to the house. So it's just one big giant grassy field. We came in and we created this space that has natural curves. It is obviously going to be wider at the top than it is at the bottom because we wanted to incorporate the two maple trees into the berm here. So really that's why we had to go as wide as we did, to have those maple trees in there. And then as it goes down closer to the creek, it does kind of ebb and flow and has some curves to it and gets a little skinnier down there towards the creek side. We put the split rail fence in that will divide that, so that way we don't have any visitors walk, through the flower bed and go from the flower bed, across into the house side. We welcome and encourage our guests here to come and explore the nursery side of the privacy berm, and then on the house side, we just ask that you stay on this side of the fence and you can, look over, glance over, and then that's what of course these videos are for, is that you can see the house side. But we did plant this. It is just now hit its 1 year mark. We started the construction of the berm because we had to, of course, bring in tons of soil. We had to create the bed. That was in, I believe, late October, and we did not start planting the trees and shrubs until November. So we planted last November of 2022. Through the beginning, mid of December, we planted the trees and the shrubs. Then spent all winter right here and everybody did great. We did lose a few of the shrubs due to the Arctic blast that came in last year right before Christmas, and those were some of the more heat-loving plants that had not yet had time to get established, like some loropetalums. So we did lose those, but then come this spring, what we did is we put in tons and tons of beautiful perennials that our friends from Walter's Gardens sent us. So on this side, the nursery side of the berm, it is only trees, shrubs, and perennials. There are no annuals on this side of the berm. On the house side, my husband does enjoy loads of color, and we have nice big open spaces for tons of gorgeous annual color. If you will remember, what we did this past summer is we loaded it up with supertunias. So we had these beautiful mass plantings of supertunias on the house side that just gave us massive color all season long. So what we're going to do is just kind of walk through and give you an update to show you what this space looks like in winter. We are officially in winter now, and we have had very cold nights. We've gotten down to 19 degrees, 20 degrees multiple times, and so everybody is in their winter dormancy and just kind of take you along for the ride. Up here at the top of the berm on the nursery side, we do still have a good bit of leaves in here that have fallen either from the maple tree, and we have, of course, these beautiful oaks, tons of oaks right here on the other side of the driveway, and so some of those have blown in, and I'm just kind of leaving them. My sedums, I am leaving the heads now for some interest. I will come in late winter, early spring, and just snip those off, as with the Russian sage. I like to leave my Russian sage alone until the heat begins to come back, because they just love the heat. They love it. And so I have found for me that they do better if I just leave them alone, and then I can trim them really far down come late winter, early spring, and really almost like more early spring, and then I'll just cut them down to the ground. In the back, you will see that we have, Mimi and I came in here 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, and just kind of cleaned up some of the perennials. We had the Agastache, the Echinacea, Amsonia is exactly where Brenna is standing. So all of that has been cut down to the ground. I do leave my perennial grasses for the winter. That way I have really pretty interest. It gives me some height, it gives me some structure, and I leave these alone. So I have them planted on both sides of the berm. This is the Niagara Falls from Proven Winners. As you can see, it's a very upright grass, really nice winter interest. And so what will happen is probably end of February, I will come and I will gather up this whole mound right here, gather it up, and then just shear it, give it a flat top down to the bottom. You want to cut your perennial grasses before they begin to send up new fresh growth. That way you can, when you cut out all that old growth, then the new growth has plenty of room to come up and shine. You can trim it after you start to get some new growth. It is harder, and then when you cut that new growth, you're probably going to have some brown tips on the edges. So optimally, you want to prune it before any new growth starts to come up. In a perfect world, that's when you do it. Though, as we all know, life happens, and so just do it when you can. Some people don't like the perennial grasses in the winter, and they go ahead and cut them now. So that really is just a personal preference. You will see throughout this flower bed that I already have my daffodils are starting to come up, and I have tons of daffodils in this berm. I just absolutely, it's one of my absolute favorite plants, and they are starting to come up. Y'all just leave them alone. They'll take care of themselves. It obviously is way too early for them to begin blooming. Leave them alone. Don't worry about them. They will be just fine. Here we have Platinum Beauty. There are 3 of these. These are from Southern Living, and they are an evergreen, lack of a better word, a grass. And y'all, these are gorgeous plants. I have them surrounding my Thunderhead. Yes, I have a Thunderhead and I have a Thundercloud. This is the Thunderhead. This is that black pine, black Japanese pine. And so with that Platinum Beauty, putting around the 3 of those around there, just really accents, really nice winter interest, and lots of fun in there for sure. I have my hydrangeas. These are panicle hydrangeas back there. It is the Quickfire Fab, and you can see that I've already given them a little bit of a haircut because I had time. Like I said, Mimi and I were in this space, and we are going to be hosting one of our employees' weddings in end of May. It's going to be a crazy time, so we were in here, we had the time, we went ahead and gave them a little bit of a snip. They'll be fine. It is all good. If you're in the garden and you have the time to do it, and you know that your spring or whatever time ahead of you is going to be, challenging and difficult, go ahead and get what you can get done, right? Every little bit helps and makes a difference. One thing that I am absolutely not going to touch right now is my Caryopteris. So here we have 3 really beautiful, healthy plants. This is the Beyond Pink Caryopteris. Caryopteris is a beautiful heat-loving shrub that really performs its best, like it really shows off in the late summer, early fall. This is like my Russian sage. I am not going to touch it until the heat begins to return. So that could even be, March, mid-March, depends on it. And then at that time, you're going to give it a really good strong haircut. So right now, just leave your Caryopteris alone and they'll be fine, right? It still gives you some structure in there for your garden. With daylilies, we just cleaned them up. You'll see the little green tips. They have not been dyed, haven't been fried all the way back, I should say. So we just cleaned them up a little bit. That is all of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, a new daylily from Proven Winners. So you can see where they have that swoosh that goes all the way. Cannot wait to see them in all of their glory when they are blooming. Now, what you cannot see is back here behind the Blood, Sweat, and Tears, there are 3 summerific Holy Grail hibiscus. Went ahead, trimmed them on down to the ground as well. Proven Winners recommends that you not prune them until you're coming out of winter and you're going into spring. I've been growing summerifics for years and years and years. And before I saw that information, I, for years, had just cut them down to the ground, just like this, because I did not like the sticks in my garden, right? I just was like, ugh, I just want to get rid of those. So I just cut them down to the ground because it's a perennial hibiscus, and they will come back from brand new growth. So they're not gonna come, no growth is gonna come off of last year's stems. But Proven Winners recommends waiting in case, you know, water gets down in the stems and they could possibly rot. I've never had an issue with that in my North Carolina Zone 8 garden, but you can make that decision for yourself. So proceed with caution however that you like to do that. I have 3 Weigillas here. This is Vino Verde, and they are complete sticks. They look just almost very much like a hydrangea right now. Weigillas, of course, are deciduous. Vino Verde is really fun because it is a bicolor with green and almost near black foliage. They will bloom, and they bloom on old growth. So I do not want to cut these right now, because if I do, any chance of me having flowers is going to be completely gone. If I want to prune these, it would be after they bloom, and I probably would come in and just shape them up a little bit, because you can see like this one is probably, you know, it's a little uneven. So I'll come in and just give it a nice gentle shape after it blooms, and then there we go. Daisy no, excuse me, these are spun silk. Look at those beautiful Shasta daisies. Look at that gorgeous green growth. This is completely normal for the Shasta daisies here in North Carolina to keep this nice, beautiful mound, whereas your echinaceas, yeah, not so much. This is the fuchsia is bright, completely died back, had those in multiple clumps through here. And then as throughout the garden, I repeat things. So we have more of the Niagara Falls grass. Here we have Monarda in the back. We just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Monarda will be very similar to the Shasta daisy as far as you will be able to see some of the foliage throughout the winter. Completely normal. And then the chartreuse on the loose, Nepeta. Bright chartreuse color. Does it look spectacular right now? No, but is it giving me some color interest? It sure is, and I'm very happy with it. So I'm going to leave it alone. When I am going into spring, I will come back in and give it a nice trim of a haircut. The Sensation honeysuckle, I have 2 of these on the fence. I have it just a couple of panels down, but you've got some nice structure here. I will have to come in and help tie it up just a little bit, because while it does climb and twine, it's not going to be one that is an aggressive twine. It's not an aggressive twiner. I know I'm making words up, but y'all understand what I mean. And the fact that you really have to kind of attach it some and then kind of tell it where to go. Otherwise, if you don't, I have found in my garden, it'll just lay on the ground and just act like a ground cover. So I have to help it climb and attach it a little bit. Very similar to like a climbing rose. If you have climbing roses where you have to help attach it, and then it will go on and do its thing. But man, beautiful traditional honeysuckle flowers on it. Love that one. And it brings me some interest on the fence, right? So it's something that's attached to the fence and is climbing on there. If you need to prune it, you can do that after it blooms. I have not pruned it at all, and it's doing just fine. One of the plants that I have been so super excited about is this Sweet Talker viburnum. The Sweet Talker is a beautiful evergreen viburnum that is definitely more of a southern plant, and it will get nice and tall. It is, as you can tell, it has more of an upright habit than wide. Y'all, and I have another one just right down on the other side of the plum tree. This sweet talker was one of those plants that got completely fried and defoliated from last year's Arctic blast. North is just this direction, so that wind, if you remember, that wind was so intense and so sustained, and it just came and it just pummeled this viburnum. They were new. They had only been in the ground, at the maximum 2 months, and much, much smaller than they are right now. Completely lost every single leaf on the plant, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're gone. But immediately, like within almost 2 weeks, they started pushing out new growth. So I felt like I was safe. This is how much they have grown in this growing season. Is this not amazing? I love this viburnum. Sweet talker gets its name because it'll do early flowers. It's little sweet pink little flowers. Obviously has a delicious fragrance to it. So that's why it's called sweet talker. Little lime punches right through here have been trimmed. Now this is the Daisy May. You can see how nice and beautiful those mounds are. Just leave them alone. This whole area right here are the Pugster Pinker butterfly bushes. And yes, they look rough. They're butterfly bushes at the end of the year. So you can see though that they do have, they will keep this green foliage that they have right now. They will keep that basically all winter long. I've had numerous people ask me, when do I prune my butterfly bushes? How do I do that? I have found from personal experience, also what proven winners suggest, is you really don't want to prune your butterfly bushes until you begin to see new growth in the spring. I have in the past cut them, a little too early, and then inevitably we get that late frost in the springtime, that late hard freeze, and it just set them back even more. So I'm going to leave mine alone until I begin to see some new growth popping out. So that could be sometime in April. At that point, because your butterfly bushes all bloom on new growth, at that point you can, depends on the butterfly bush, Pugsters are only going to be like a 3x3. I will probably still take it back by, somewhere between that 1/3 and 1/2 size of the plant and give them a nice hard prune, because man, they will come back with a vengeance and be happy and beautiful. But you can see like all of that black essentially on the shrub itself were all flowers. So all those little black things are the old spent flowers, and just absolutely covered in beautiful flowers. I do have the purple plum. This is the thundercloud purple plum, and it is still holding on, y'all, to some leaves. This tree has held on to more leaves than I believe any tree that I have in my entire garden. Of course, it keeps that beautiful, nice, dark foliage, those nice, beautiful, dark leaves. It keeps this color all year. So when the leaves come out, this is the color, and it is a full sun tree, and it looks like when it blooms in the spring, it very much reminds you of a cherry tree. So it's nice because we have cherry trees on the other side that I'll show you in just a minute. So we have that beautiful spring interest with the flowers, and then of course that nice dark foliage throughout the entire growing season. And really, you can still see it has leaves on it at the end of the year. It's just crazy. I love it. And we have some orange pillar barberries around the purple plum, and they are doing well. It brings me some fun pop of color. There's 3 of them in there, and very, very nice different interest in there. And yeah, so love that uprightness of that orange pillar. And then we start to repeat again, right? So we have that sweet talker viburnum, we have 3 more of the Niagara Falls, we still have daylilies here, but they are different daylilies. This is, I want to say, King of Ages. I'm losing my tag on here. Agastaki, we have the Holy Grail again. So we have 3 Holy Grails in here. So I kind of take those plants and then I just repeat them all throughout. Yes, there are things that are like bare spots because those plants have gone dormant, and that does not bother me one iota. Now, one of the plants that, again, absolutely blew me away because I was not sure how it was going to do in my garden was this Winecraft Gold smoke bush. Y'all, can we just talk about that it is every bit of close to 5 feet. Now, yes, it is, you know, it is sticks right now. There's two little leaves barely hanging on, but 5 feet worth of growth right here. When I planted this last year, it was a very small, I want to even say it may have been a 1 gallon. I'd have to go back and look. No bigger than a 3 gallon, right? This thing absolutely thrives right here. That Winecraft Gold is bright yellow chartreuse foliage on it, nice and big, obviously has more of an upright habit to it. I have the Holy Grails behind it, so they just, I mean, they both just pop off of each other. But the reason that I put the Winecraft Gold down here is because it is a full sun plant, so it needs that minimum of 6 hours to get that beautiful color to it. But because we are in North Carolina and with our heat and humidity, I wanted to give it a bit of a break in the afternoon. And so in this corner of the bed, it gets the shade first. So it probably doesn't start to get shade until about like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but that seems to be enough, and it is absolutely thriving. Love this shrub so much. And then as we come down here to the bottom, we have those daylilies. It is Blazing Glory. So I found my tag. So we have Blazing Glory down here, and that was a little bit of Blazing Glory up here, which is a nice bright yellow with kind of burgundy edges on it. Really nice. And then of course, our North Pole arborvitaes. These North Poles, we put them down here on the end because I wanted to create a anchor point, because as you can see, I mean, we're on this is a pretty good slope right here, and to give the weight on this end of the flower bed. So we have 2, 4, 6, we have 7 of these North Poles. They were 15 gallons when we planted them. I have done nothing to them. This bed is on irrigation. We would run it about once a week for about 45 minutes, and these guys are just doing great. They'll get to be in that 10 to 15 feet tall and about 3 to 5 wide. So the idea here is that they will get nice and tall, and they will create like a solid screen right here. Because also when we're sitting on the porch way over there, that will give us a little bit of privacy from the nursery. So these guys are doing great. I haven't had to prune them. I'm just leaving them alone, and I am quite happy with how they are doing in the garden. Can you tell that this poor dog has been in the house cooped up after the holidays, and then we've had a bunch of rain? So she is just so excited to be outside and just running like a mad woman around here. Now, here we are on the house side of the privacy berm. This is the area that you will notice will have a big, huge empty space that has nothing, seemingly has nothing planted in it. This is where the flower power comes in, my friend. So we're gonna start down here on the bottom, and then we'll work our way up to the top. Down here, we have this is the golden Oakland holly. This is a holly tree from our friends at the Southern Living Plant Collection. Love this because it has really bright foliage on it. Now, winter sun and summer sun are quite different. This has great color for the winter. It is starting to get a little bit more green than it typically is in the summertime. Because of the way that the sun sets, this does not get a ton of winter sun. Summertime, it gets lots, and it will turn a beautiful, bright chartreuse green. Now, if you remember, this past summer, we had tons of Wicked Witch coleus in here. We had the Senorita Blanca Cleome. This space was just filled. I am not gonna put, I'm not putting the coleus back in here, because can you see on one of my North Poles right here where I have a little bit of brown? I'm not concerned about it. It'll be fine. But I had a coleus right here growing into that North Pole. Did not realize it, and it was blocking all of the sun for that. So we've got a little bit of dead foliage. That will come out, and it'll be fine. It'll fill back in. So if I put anything in here, it will be much lower and not anything quite as aggressive as that Wicked Witch. Now, do I regret having that Wicked Witch? Absolutely not. It was stunning and beautiful. Coming on up, we have got some camellias. These are the October Magic Ruby camellias. These are Sasanquas from, again, our friends at Southern Living Plant Collection, and Sasanquas bloom in the fall, and it looks like they are pretty much done blooming for this year. So we do have 3 of them right here, and they do great. These Sasanquas are full sun. They are rated as full sun, and they have performed great. They bloomed really nicely, so very happy with them. And then I have some clematis here, and I have 3 of them in this bed. These are completely herbaceous clematis, so I will cut them down to the ground, and they will come back brand new growth and be blooming. I just discovered right there beside of Brenna is a lovely weed that is not supposed to be green. Everything's supposed to be brown in here, and so when I see all that green, I'm like, you do not belong here. So we'll take that out. This hydrangea between in the middle of the camellias, that is pufferfish. Pufferfish, of course, will be in that like 3 to 5, I want to say, size range. Big, huge, beautiful panicle blooms, creamy white. You can see that we obviously have not trimmed this. This too had cleome around it and got a little bit too friendly with the pufferfish. Will not do that again. I want this to shine. That is the great thing about annuals, is that you can use them kind as temporary fillers, right? So while you're waiting on your trees, your shrubs, your perennials to grow and develop, because it really takes like 3 years for them to do that, put your annuals in there, fill in some space, make it nice and full, because remember, the more plants you have in your garden, the less room you have for weeds. So that certainly does help in the flower bed. Directly behind Brenna is one of my favorite butterfly bushes. This is the Pink Cascade 2 butterfly bush. We trialed this from our friends at Walter's Gardens and had it all the way in the old display beds at the nursery. I dug it up and moved it last year on the absolute probably worst day I could, because it was sunny and it was hot, and even though I did my absolute best to get as much of the roots out as possibly could, I still inevitably, you break some, and this poor thing, oh, she protested. She got limpy and she wilted and she looked bad. I kept water, I did trim her, but she came back with a beautiful vengeance, and she is huge. I mean, the flowers on this Pink Cascade 2 are just ginormous. The butterflies were covering this plant. I adore this butterfly bush. Again, had a cleome right here, and you can see with that how she's a little bit lopsided, right? So when you're looking at the butterfly bush, it is definitely fuller on the front side than it is on the back. Now, if I were to continue to plant annuals back here that would kind of take over that butterfly bush, then ultimately, yes, that could, in the long run, kind of mess up my form of that butterfly bush. I'm not going to do that this year. Plus, she's going to get a hard prune. So I'm not worried about it at all. She will definitely fill in on the back side this year, because we're not going to have anything tall on the back side, even on the other side of the berm, because directly behind her are the Holy Grails. So they too will be nice and low, so they will all get plenty of sun all around them, and all will be well, right? So you just kind of keep that in mind when you're going through and thinking about your flower beds. What worked, what didn't work, what do you want to change, and so forth. And next, this is the big empty space that we were talking about. We have, just go through here real quick. We have 2 cherry trees. They are the same. These are Yoshino cherry trees. They are ornamental cherry trees, beautiful spring flowers, just beautiful. Love them, right? And then they're green for the rest of the season. Nice kind of that silvery gray bark on them, so they stand out quite nicely. We have sprinter boxwoods that are in kind of inverted V shapes around the Yoshinos. We are going to change this. Now, last year what we did is we had, like I said, the super petunias were planted in each 3 of these big empty spaces. We're going to change the placement of the boxwoods, because we just ultimately it didn't turn out in reality like we were thinking in our brain. We just don't like it as much. But we're gonna wait because we showed you, oh gosh, a couple weeks ago where we planted thousands, literal thousands of tulip bulbs in this space. So everywhere that you see a blank space right here, it is the Super Collider blend of tulips from our friends at Color Blends. So we've got bright yellow, bright red, and deep purple. Every square inch is planted in tulips. It is going to be a stunning spring. So between when the tulips have finished blooming, but before we put in next year's flowers, we will rearrange these boxwoods, right? So we're gonna move them, we're gonna change it, because I know some of y'all were like, I just don't like that placement. And then the more we started looking at it, we were like, it didn't work for us. So we're gonna move them and just, we're just gonna put them in a different pattern in the flower bed. Where behind Brenna is, there are 3 Holy Grails on this side as well. So we kind of repeat that back and forth. So there are Holy Grails on that side of the fence, Holy Grails on this side of the fence, and then Holy Grails up again. So when you're looking down on the drone, you've got 3 sets of Holy Grails in here. The other sprinter boxwoods, the other cherry tree, and then up here we have more perennials that are doing, just hanging in and just chilling out for the winter. We have daffodils, jonquils in here as well, so they are coming up in certain areas. We have, of course, those Niagara Falls grasses, the Russian sage we repeated again. We have the sedums again. Even though they are different varieties, they still echo back and forth on each side. One little tree that I was really pleased with, this is the Stellar Ruby Magnolia from Southern Living. This is an evergreen magnolia, not the typical magnolia that you're going to think of when you think of magnolias in the South. It is evergreen, like what we think of a magnolia. It does have some brown on it, and I do believe that is just from like those 19-degree nights. I'm not overly concerned. Even if they were to drop, which they probably will in the spring, we still have lots of beautiful growth on it, and it'll be fine. So even though you have some of the winter damage, and then you look over here and everything is just fine. But the Stellar Ruby gets its name. It is also known as a banana tree because it will do these flowers that are ruby colored, but when they are fully developed, the flowers are fully developed, they smell exactly like a ripe banana. It is the craziest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. I thought there is no way that a flower can smell like a ripe banana, but they do. It's great. So you can keep these either as a nice large shrub, or you could limit up to be a small tree. Either way, I think I'm probably going to keep it more in the shrub situation, at least for now. And then if I want to start to limit up and make it like a small tree, I can do that. So it's really just kind of what is your personal preference? What is the look you're going for? And then of course you can always change your mind, right? So this bed, like I said, we have been so incredibly pleased with how well it has done being in the ground for the first year. It was absolutely stunning throughout the entire growing season. I cannot wait to see how everything, overwinters. Inevitably, we're gonna lose some things, right? Maybe we have a really wet winter and there are some areas where I have some echinacea and they just don't do really well. Then I can come in the spring and I can take those out and put in something else. That's the beautiful thing about gardening, right? A garden is never finished. It is never complete. You're constantly changing and tweaking what worked, what thrived, what didn't work. You have an Arctic blast that you've never had in 20 years and suddenly you get something and you lose a plant. Well, that just opens up the door for new possibilities and new plants, right? So that's the fun thing. You're always looking, you're always tweaking, you're always changing. New plants are always coming out onto the market. You discover plants maybe that have always been on the market and you're just getting to know them. So that's just the fun thing about gardening and just keeping up with it and just in creating the space that you enjoy, right? Yes, this side of the berm, the house side right now is pretty empty, but guess what? We're not spending very much time on our front porch. We spend all of our time on the front porch in spring, summer, and fall. And that is when this beautiful shrub, this privacy berm is absolutely thriving is then. We're not hanging out there on the front porch in, you know, end of December. It's a little too chilly. So it's perfectly fine that this is a little bit more bare in those winter months. Doesn't bother us a bit. But as always, we hope you found this fun, informative, and inspirational. Can't wait to see what next year holds for this garden. As always, we appreciate you. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.